Hello everyone, and welcome to Hope is Not a Tactic here in the DisruptEdTV.com television network. This is the three-part series that we talked about, running about Parkland High School and the report that came out. The shooting that took place there took place on February 14th, 2018, less than a year ago. The reverberations from that event, from that shooting, from that terrible tragedy are echoing since that day, and they're not going to stop anytime soon. There's a lot of lessons to be learned there. In Florida, they put together a very comprehensive report where they looked at every single thing that happened that day, the security, the protocols, the procedures, everything they had at that high school. And they put together this report to inform all of us. And here on Hope is Not a Tactic, we're going to go through it over a couple of episodes to try and help you do better in your school. So that day started out like any other day, as they do in most schools all across this country. No one was anticipating the danger that was going to come. At 2 o'clock in the afternoon, the school was getting ready to start shutting down. The end of the school day was about 2:40 p.m. And the school was getting ready to shut down. There were unarmed security personnel, security monitors they were called, and they went around the campus and they started unlocking doors so that the kids could get out, just like they do in the morning. They open the doors so the kids can get in. This is a common practice everywhere. One of the things we talk about here on Hope is Not a Tactic and on our True Security Design company when we go out and do work is approaching danger, limiting access to your people, watching doors. All these things are very important. We're going to see how that plays into what happened here at the Parkland High School. So our shooter, Mr. Cruz, shows up via an Uber. He took an Uber to the school. He gets out of the Uber with a bag, a carry bag. Now, in some reports, it's been reported that people called it a gun bag. I don't know if it looked like a gun bag or not. It looked like a bag, and he's carrying a bag. He was a known entity to the school, and this is one of the important lessons we need to talk about. They knew that this young man had been problematic in the past. He had been removed from school several times, and I believe he was an expelled student finally. They put him out of the school completely for things that he had been involved in. Well, he arrives at the school by an Uber. He gets out and he walks through an unlocked, unmanned, unmonitored fence gate. And he walks towards Building 12. Building 12 is where all the shooting took place. As this young man is walking towards the building, there is a security guard who recognizes him, sees him, and describes him as the kid that they thought was problematic, that they even joked around about and said he'd be the kid that shoot up the school. Well, little did he know when he said that this young man was on his way at that moment for just exactly that. Cruz walks up to the school. The security guard is coming towards him, but he does not stop him. Instead, he radios to another security monitor that this kid is going into the building. That is the first step right then and there when they recognized this was not a regular student, he was not a current student in the building, and maybe he was a student that was potentially dangerous. They could have put the school into lockdown right then and there. So Cruz enters the school through the unlocked, unsecured, unmanned door. And as he's walking down the hallway, the other security guard who had been called previously sees him down the hallway as Cruz ducks into the stairwell of the high school. While he's in the stairwell of the high school, a freshman student wanders into that stairwell, apparently to go to one of his classes, and he sees Cruz unloading his guns from the bag and loading up the weapons ready to go, at which point he says something to this young man to the effect of, "You better get out of here, things are going to get messy." So this freshman student who saw the weapon and spoke to Cruz flees the building. As he's leaving the building, at some point in that area, he comes across a football coach who is also acting as one of the security monitors, and he tells him he just saw a guy with a gun. At that point, the football coach, who had a radio, did not put the building into lockdown. Didn't make a call as far as we can tell. Time is now ticking. You know, we talk here all the time about time equals life, and we look at these events right here. There's a couple of opportunities that the entire school could have been put into lockdown, and at this point, it still hasn't happened. Cruz now steps out of that first floor stairwell with his weapon, and he starts firing at students who are in the hallway. He strikes and kills several students. He injures many others, and he starts working his way down the hallway. The school is still not in lockdown, keep that in mind, but people are hearing these gunshot sounds, which I'm sure, as most people describe them, are funny popping sounds, scary sounds, because there's video out there, students' phone video, where you can actually hear the sound of this weapon going off. It was very, very loud. So the students are fleeing now from the gunshots. Some are injured, some are killed. And Cruz is making his way down the hallway. He gets to some of the classrooms, and he can see in the classroom. He never makes an attempt to physically enter the classroom, but he certainly shoots through the glass at students that he can see. So if the window had been covered, there's some indications that he didn't shoot in every room, but where he could see students, he fired at them. The report says that the school did not have every classroom set up with hard corners, as they call them. A hard corner is an area where if you're hiding and I'm looking in from the door, I can't see you anywhere. Several of the classrooms in the school district, in the school high school, did have that, but not all of them. Only a couple of them had them in place. People had them on the floor. We always suggest maybe put it on the ceiling. It's more permanent when it's on the ceiling because it doesn't get messed up when they clean the floors, whether they're doing waxing or whether they're doing cleaning the rugs or whatever. You put it on the ceiling. And the students always know if they get behind that line, they can't be seen from the door. So the indication we have here is that he couldn't see the students that were behind those lines and he didn't shoot at them. So Cruz continues now down this hallway. Eventually, at one point, a teacher comes in from the other side of the building, and he fires on that teacher and injures him. At some point, when that teacher is down, as Cruz is making his way to the other end of the building, he shoots and kills a student and this teacher who were laying there. He finishes them with several additional shots. Now he goes to the second floor. On the second floor, there's indications that he's looking around. He's trying to figure out who's there. The building is still not in lockdown. Several minutes have gone by, and he's still making his way through this building. On the second floor, he's looking for victims. He's looking in windows. He doesn't see anyone, and he goes to the third floor. On the third floor, there are children that apparently by this point, a fire alarm had gone off. So we're not in lockdown, but there is a fire alarm. And what do people do when there's a fire alarm? They come out into the hallways, and the hallways were filled with kids. Now he starts shooting at the kids who are in the hallway because of the fire alarm. Several young people are struck and killed here. Others are injured. Children go fleeing as he's working his way down this hallway. This entire scene must have been horrific for those kids and for any of the teachers that were there. We know that several kids were caught outside of rooms and they couldn't get in. We also know that some kids tried to get into some of the bathrooms on the third floor, but the bathrooms were locked because there'd been a vaping problem going on at the school, so the bathrooms on the first and third floors were locked. If kids needed to use a bathroom, they had to go to the second floor bathrooms where there was a monitor to pay attention who was coming and going. So vaping, well, we look at vaping, we say, okay, vaping, kids using the vape pens to smoke. What has that got to do with security? Well, other than exposing everyone to secondhand vape smoke and potentially drugs, here we have an incident where the school bathrooms were locked and kids had no place to go and hide because of the vaping. All right, so vaping, as we can see, there's lots of articles out there now. We've done a show here on Hope is Not a Tactic about it. Vaping is becoming a bigger problem. It's now involved in a school shooting. It actually has an effect that these kids couldn't find a place to go because the bathrooms were locked. At this point, Cruz continues down this hallway where we can see on the animation he's firing shots. He goes into a teacher's lounge. Now, when you watch the cameras, when they show you the cameras and the footage, there are cameras that are motion sensitive. So they only record when there's motion. So when he ducks into the teacher's lounge, there's a gap of time because he stops moving, there's no one moving in the hallway. And that's when he's shooting out the windows, trying to get kids and students and teachers who are down below. He doesn't hit anybody there, but he does shoot through that glass. At some point he turns back around, he gets back into that hallway, the cameras start recording again, he gets to that stairwell, and he decides it's time to go. He drops his weapon, and he flees the school. He goes down the 3 flights of stairs, out of the school and gone. So when we look at that entire incident, it only took several minutes for the shooting. But we had security guards who recognized him as a potential danger. We had unlocked, unsecured, unmonitored doors that he got in very easily. We had kids who saw him, and still no one called anything into lockdown. So you need to look at your policies. You need to look at your procedures. Who can call a lockdown? One of the things we talk about at True Security all the time is that every single person on your staff should be able to recognize danger and call a lockdown. So it can happen quickly. Time equals life. So if a custodian sees a kid approaching with a gun bag, or a kid that's been suspended, or someone who's not supposed to be there, they could put the building in lockdown. Your security personnel should be able to call into lockdown. This, you have to look at your practices and procedures. So at True Security Design, these are things we go over when we talk about this. Here on Hope is Not a Tactic, we're reminding you that right now. Look at your policy and procedure and practice.